Thanks, everybody. Thanks for hanging in late afternoon. Hopefully you got a good snack because I brought slides. So bear with me. Not a panel discussion, but want to walk you through, as Andy mentioned, some national labor force insights and workforce trends out of our national report that we do every other year. And also bring it home to the state of Utah, what we're seeing across the ecosystem here. We'll dive right in. Just a little bit about our firm, TEConomy Partners. We do consulting work around the country. We do some internationally. We've been doing this work for about 30 years as a group. We came out of Battelle, a much larger organization, about 10 years ago. And we work in innovation-led or technology-based economic development. So we come at this work with that economic development perspective. We work nationally with groups like bio and pharma to speak to the state of the industry. We have a 20-year track record of a biennial report that we put out with bio on the state of the life sciences industry in the states. So it's very relevant for groups like BioUtah and others to take the pulse of where we are as an industry in terms of trends, on big focus on employment, but also our innovation ecosystem. Every other year now, we also work with a group called the Life Sciences Workforce Collaborative. It was formerly known as the Coalition of State Bio Institutes. These are folks focused on workforce and talent development in the life sciences across our states. BioUtah is a part of that. So with LSWC, we work on this National Life Sciences Trends Report. So I'm going to speak about those two today, but we do bring perspectives from our work in the states. We've probably done life sciences strategy, assessment, impact work in a couple dozen states over the years. We are industry agnostic, but we do a lot of work in the life sciences. Again, with that economic development focus, do strategies, strategic roadmaps, really helping states and regions hone in on their unique set of growth opportunities in the life sciences. So it's fun work. So these are the two reports I'll be speaking on today. We're going to start first with some national perspectives that I think I hope you'll find ring true here in Utah as you all do your work and this ecosystem, this industry continues to advance and really shine on a national perspective. As we look at the trends in Utah, they do mirror quite a bit of what we're seeing nationally, and we'll walk through those. And the report on the right is that U.S. Bioscience Economy report. That's our work with bio. That one was released about a year ago now. Kelvin asked that I do speak to that report in some of the Utah data. So be a little patient, and we'll sort of drill down on the Utah situation. This is the seventh iteration of the National Life Sciences Workforce Trends Report. We have worked on the last three with LSWC. The real power in this report, and I would encourage you all to read it. I've linked to it on the speaker and session profile here. Happy to share it around. Their website is lifesciencesworkforce.org. LSWC works to really be an advocate, a conduit, a convener around life sciences workforce trends, things like industry-recognized credentials, bringing together our academic institutions and partners with the industry and that sort of thing. In the 2025 report, we got interviews and surveys submitted from 30 states and Puerto Rico, including Utah. The data and the information that really drive these trends and how we land on these trends, as Andy said, it comes from a hiring survey of HR managers and executives across the country. We had over 500 companies submit this year, so lots of good findings, results, a good variety of companies across the industry. And then we do executive interviews across the nation as well. There were more than 200 that were input into this work. Then we bring a lot of data analysis. So we're looking at U.S. job postings for the industry over the last several years. We bring in things like industry staffing patterns. How are the occupational mix evolving over time? So again, read the report. There's a lot of detail in there. I will say, as we define, I'll just level set the biosciences, it is in line with our definition for bio. It's how we develop a comparable definition across every state and metro area with 5 subsectors: the agricultural biosciences, industrial biosciences, bioscience or life science related distribution, pharmaceutical manufacturing, medical device manufacturing, and then what we call research testing and medical labs, which is inclusive of our pre-commercial biotechs, as well as the testing and medical lab footprint across the country. So this report gets organized across a set of trends every time we do it. And there's a lot here, a lot of verbiage. I'll kind of help boil this, but we landed on 4 themes or trends for this 2025 report. Unlike 2 years ago, the industry has really been impacted by macroeconomic and global uncertainties. Uncertainty was a big theme that we heard over and over, and really investment challenges. Lower hiring volumes and slower employment growth were really sort of the bottom line there. It was not the most fun report to write. 2 years ago, we were talking, the report that was released 2 years ago, we were talking about a war for talent, signing bonuses. We were talking about we cannot find enough bodies in this industry across the country. 2 years later, as we surveyed and took the pulse in the first quarter of this year, our companies were telling us it's a very different situation. It's been affected by things like inflation, this uncertainty, lower investment volumes, and it's resulting in a real focus on strategic hires rather than volume, targeted cost reductions, and a real investment in our existing workforce, which is sort of the silver lining. We're seeing higher retention among our companies, and therefore we're investing in upskilling, but also automation. The second trend that we identified, we asked these industry executives about technologies that are impacting their business and their workforce. Probably not a big surprise to folks in this room that we heard AI and automation in spades. This was just very pervasive and just, the consistent theme throughout. And that's creating both disruptive opportunities and challenges for the workforce. The third trend, driven in part by that increased employee retention, as well as ever-evolving regulatory and technology integration, is that upskilling and reskilling context for our workforce. It's a key priority for companies to meet that fast-changing technical talent needs throughout the value chain for the industry that spans R&D, production, distribution. And the fourth trend we'll unpack is industry engagement with our schools, whether it's K-12 or higher ed, is really surging. And we see this as quite positive. There's a lot of support for STEM education across all education levels. Also a lot of support, and we've had some discussions in this track today about work-based learning, internship opportunities, co-ops, that companies tell us they're really leaning into. So we'll spend a little time on each of these, and then I will try to allow a little time for Q&A at the end. But the top line industry trends I mentioned under this first theme, we're really seeing at the national level employment leveling off in the biosciences or life sciences in 2024. This is an industry that has steadily grown, added jobs. It's remarkably resilient during economic downturns. I mean, this is what gets the economic development folks like us very excited about this industry. It's value proposition for creating jobs. But that's really leveled off in 2024. I'll show you some graphics. Industry job postings, which we like to look at for this work, have declined since peaking in 2022 as well. Companies tell us they're hiring, but at lower volumes. And again, this situation is extremely different from 2 years ago. The executive interviews in particular, but also the survey points to inflation, cost concerns generally, and then these global uncertainties, whether it be tariffs or uncertainties around talent or student visas, these types of geopolitical concerns. Investment funding and fundraising challenges, particularly for our biotech companies, our emerging biopharmaceutical space. As I mentioned, sort of the bright side of this is lower turnover and greater retention. We are seeing an investment in our employees. So when we look at the data, on the left side of this is the national life sciences sector, which you can see has been leveling out the last few years. We had about 5 years of average annual growth of about 4.5% in jobs across the industry. And in 2023, that went to 1%. In 2024, we saw a very slight decline, basically completely leveled off. You can see those subsectors I mentioned on the right. The employment situation is definitely mixed. We have seen job gains in pharmaceuticals, albeit small, nationally, and bioscience-related distribution. This is the Cardinal Health's, I always forget the name of AmerisourceBergen has changed its name. But some of these distribution companies have continued to add jobs. Where we've seen declines are in medical devices and research and testing in our ag biosciences sector. Likewise, when it comes to job postings, we saw this peak in 2022. These are unique job postings, so non-duplicative. We're able to pinpoint unique instances. This situation, as we think about those 5 subsectors I mentioned, plays out across all 5, where we saw a peak in 2022, and we've seen a steady decline since. I will say for Utah, the situation looks very much like that on the left side overall. I will say in Utah, though, we see pharmaceutical job postings steadily rising. So it's not all a uniform situation. You also see the decline in life sciences job postings as a share of all job postings, which in Utah, I will mention, is highly outsized. We punch above our weight in the life sciences, so we have a lot more job postings there. So what does this mean for the, for workforce and talent demand? We sort of unpack these 5 themes in the report, but companies are telling us we're not looking at broad-based headcounts and massive hiring. We're looking at this narrower emphasis on what they call strategic hires. They're looking hard at what are our most critical functions within the organization and thinking hard about that. With cost concerns, companies are telling us they're utilizing contractors and consultants rather than bringing on full-time employees. Targeted cost reduction, and companies were telling us very consistently they're looking to automation to help enhance productivity, address cost concerns. You sort of read between the lines, and a lot of that is sort of, we're going to keep our hiring stable, but we're going to look to automation and continue to reap the sort of enhanced output and productivity that this industry has long known. We're investing more, as I've mentioned, in existing employees' development and upskilling. That's its own theme, as I mentioned, so we'll talk about that. And as we surveyed, companies are telling us, again, some silver lining, it's less challenging to hire for a lot of key roles. When we've done these surveys in the past, the share of folks telling us it's very difficult to find senior research scientists, QA, QC folks, regulatory folks, engineering talent was always very, very high. So, 35%, 25% of companies telling us that. Now it's in the single digits. So if you look at the report, maybe 9% of companies or 8% of companies are telling us it's very difficult to hire for those. So for our employers, for our hiring managers, you may be seeing the situation sort of loosen in the labor market. Let's talk about this second trend. again, when we asked executives what's impacting your workforce, what technologies, again, AI, and the automation and broader digital transformation, a lot of that was ongoing in manufacturing operations. The sort of Industry 4.0 notion of increased, enhanced digital adoption, which has a lot of implications for workforce. And obviously, these are highly interrelated in some ways, but it's creating both disruptive and opportunity, but also opportunities across our workforce. So in the report, we talk about how it's changing the nature of roles and how we need our employees across all these different roles to sort of embrace AI-related tools, be more digitally savvy and whatnot. Really interesting in the report is executives, and apologies, you're not going to be able to read this, but more reason to check out the report. They're telling us all these different use cases for AI that we were able to sort of synthesize. And I will say, we had been hearing over the last several years the case for AI in innovation-led activities like drug discovery or data analytics and decision-making. We were increasingly hearing in this report, we're using it for not only our innovation-centric activities, but our business functions and how we can automate workflows, how we can, everything from supporting technical support to legal work to marketing to HR functions and how we process applications and resumes to predictive supply chain applications. So I will say a lot of the industry, as you're reading these interviews, and I was just in the AI talk next door, it's uneven adoption and integration, but you can see the wheels turning as you read these transcripts. You can see folks looking for ways to enhance productivity of our existing workforce, really optimize our existing workforce for productivity. We didn't hear a lot of this is replacing people in our organization, I will say that. But you also sort of hear this voice of we're investing in AI amidst these sort of broader challenges we're facing in the marketplace, and we're looking to really enhance productivity. Just for those of you who live this stuff, we looked at sort of the leading specialized skills for AI and data sciences specific roles coming out of job postings. So as you synthesize a couple million job postings in the industry, we drilled down into the AI and data science related roles. We looked at what's showing up there, and these are sort of the leading rising mentions in job postings. Lots of digital skills, lots of specialized technology skills. That's probably no surprise to folks in the room. But again, take a look at the report and you'll see how it's affecting our occupational base. The third trend around upskilling and reskilling, this is really addressing and sort of coming to a head around a confluence of factors. We have this lower turnover, higher retention, so employers are telling us they're investing in both internal and external upskilling and reskilling of our workforce. So we are partnering, we're hearing, with our four-year institutions, our community colleges in big ways, as you'll see further on, also partnering at the K-12 levels in many respects. But as far as this upskilling agenda, a lot of it is occurring in-house as well. So we're doing a lot of internal training. But skills-based training focus is sort of the ongoing nature of a very innovative, tech-driven, science-driven business, right? So these regulatory changes and shifts, the increasing automation and digital transformation of our companies, implementing AI and adopting it, all have implications and needs for upskilling and maintaining this workforce that's a few million strong nationally. Leveraging data capture and advanced analytics, another big theme, but it's just sort of this pervasive need and ongoing, and really, and we work around the country, we hear this consistently. Folks are telling us they need flexible credentialing approaches. We need certificate approaches, micro-credentials that we can stack among our employees. We're hearing about the value of demonstrated competencies, which I'll show you in a minute. So it's really, what can you come in and do for and with us? And if you're not quite there, we are willing to work to train you up. To that point, we always ask employers about what they're emphasizing regarding skills, education, competencies among our workers. And when we ask about entry-level technician and production hires, so these are everything from engineering techs to lab techs to production workforces, it's a little hard to see, but that top line, almost 8 in 10 employers tell us it's very important to have demonstrated skills and competencies for us to be able to see what skills you bring to the table and implement that. The second area is experience in a related occupation or job. So employers, at least for those entry-level roles, these are not our top talent, PhD talent, but for those entry-level technician and production hires, they're telling us those are more important than 4-year degrees, even 2-year degrees. Now, I don't want to dismiss those because you can see sizable portions still telling us those are very important. But at the end of the day, it's, do you have experience? Do you have these competencies we need to work in a laboratory in a highly regulated environment, to work a production floor, to work in our increasingly digital manufacturing environments? I won't belabor this, but lots of specialized skills, sort of ranked here by their increasing use in reference in job postings across ag, bio, medical devices, pharmaceuticals, and again, you see sort of this pervasive nature of digital skills and specialized skills. So for those of you in one of these segments, you might want to check out the report and sort of see what's rising to the top. The fourth trend is really around engagement of our student populations. Our firm has worked quite a long time with pharma on a national basis to tell the story of the biopharmaceutical industry's engagement in STEM education across the country. And I can tell you it's been robust for some time. But what we were seeing in this survey versus 2 years ago and in our executive interviews was this huge surge in we are getting involved in K-12 classrooms, in mentorships, in internships, and engaging our post-secondary students. And you can see the rise just over this 2-year period. I have no doubt that was influenced in 2023 a bit as we were asking about the prior couple years by COVID. But either way you look at it, there's a real surge. And the emphasis in terms of our post-secondary students, so what this shows is K-8 on the left, high school, community college, and 4-year college and university, and the share of companies telling us they're engaging in these various activities. So whereas in K-8 classrooms 2 years ago, we heard about 12% of firms involved. Now we're up to over 50% of firms telling us that in some way, shape, or form, we're involved with teaching students about what we do or helping with science fairs or after-school efforts or summer research sort of projects. But as you look at that community college and 4-year buckets, in terms of 4-year colleges and universities, almost 8 in 10 employers are telling us we are hiring interns on some level. And as you read through the interview transcripts, it's a lot of co-ops, internships. This is working for us, and we have really ramped it up. Now, I know in a prior session we talked about how difficult that can be for companies, right? It's an onus on folks who are bandwidth challenged to engage, but I think companies are finding creative ways to do it with specific projects, bringing in cohorts and sort of having more at-scale involvement. And then that co-op model really does seem to be gaining traction with employers. Just a bit of a look ahead. This chart is a little tough to read because we asked this in buckets. We wanted folks to tell us over the next 12 months, tell us your hiring outlook across these various types of roles and positions. But the top sort of very light blue is more than 30 hires, whereas the bottom darker blue is 1 to 5 hires. So as you can imagine, we get lots of companies saying, oh, I'm going to hire between 1 and 5. But when we ask about 30 or more hires, that's that top set of bars there. The bottom line is manufacturing and production, lab technicians, engineering roles, quality control and assurance. Those were the 4 big ones in terms of, especially as we look at our biopharmaceutical industry and our medical device segments, where there's a major anticipated hiring activity. That's not to say the others aren't, but really, and we saw this 2 years ago, manufacturing and production continues to be the most emphasized area as we look out. I also won't belabor this, but I do want to put a plug in addition to our 4 themes, in the back of the report, we look across all the data work we've done, the industry hiring expectations from the hiring survey. We look at job posting activity, staffing patterns, sort of the occupational mix of the industry, and we go through and score a lot of these top roles for what are the real high demand roles in the industry. And you can see a lot of those listed on the left side. Life scientists, senior scientists, data scientists, the regulatory piece, lab technicians, skilled production workforce. That's where I would encourage you to take a look and see where a lot of the high demand hiring activity and expectations and outlook are. And we do include which industry subsectors are really driving the demand across each. So that's the National Workforce Report. In just a bit of time we have left, Kelvin did ask that we speak to the state of the life sciences industry and innovation ecosystem in Utah. This is from the BioUtah report, but we've updated a lot of the data. As we look across these 5 subsectors that I've mentioned, Utah is home to almost 41,000 life sciences industry jobs spanning more than 2,000 business establishments. Now, I know today you heard a 180K figure, but when you dig into that, that's an economic impact analysis. So that's the direct jobs that I'm speaking to here, but also the supply chain that the industry supports in the state. So that's where you get that bigger, much bigger concept and number. But in this work we do for bio, and we do a state profile in every state, so you can find the Utah profile and hold it up against any other state you want. We measure about 41,000 jobs in these 5 subsectors. This industry in Utah is outsized. It punches above its weight. I've heard a lot of people say we've arrived today, and I would echo that. We're 65% more concentrated in our state here than the national average in terms of jobs. So when you think about the importance of the life sciences industry, there's no doubt it has this outsized concentration. And those 2,000 business establishments aren't unique firms, but they're unique physical sites across the state. So that's consistent with the 1,600 firms we heard mentioned this morning. But we have a diverse set of strengths. When you look at that location quotient and how we measure that concentration metric, Utah has a specialization, a specialized outsized employment concentration well above the national average in medical devices, in pharmaceuticals, and in research testing in medical laboratories. So, this is exciting. Utah is one of only 9 states when we do this work that has 3 or more specializations across these subsectors. So we're not a one-trick pony, if you will. Some states you can go and they're dominating in pharmaceuticals, but they don't have the sort of varied set of competencies we have here in Utah. So it's definitely a distinction. I will put a plug in because we do a lot of work around venture capital investments. Utah has health IT and digital health in spades as well. It's almost half of all venture capital investments in the state are directed to that. What, unfortunately, we can't do is isolate that from the broader IT sector nationally. We work on, we have to make this comparable across every state, and there is no NAICS code, if you know the federal statistical system, that isolates digital health. Just in terms of trends, in the blue here, you've got employment trends from 2019 to 2024, a little bit longer term perspectives. Utah has grown almost 12% in its job base since 2019. The challenge, as we look at 2022 to 2024, and we isolate that latest 2-year period, is we have actually held very steady. And this is true, as I showed you, nationally. It's true in a number of states we're working. And it's frustrating to us to see it level off. But it's really this mixed picture. You can see on the left side, research, testing, and medical labs in the orange has grown over the last 2 years. Distribution has grown. But our pharmaceutical segment and medical devices and equipment jobs have actually declined. And that's driven that sort of leveling off of employment. As we look at job postings on the left side of this graphic, we sort of list who is hiring in Utah over the last 2 years. Hopefully those look familiar to you. We know there's a number of homegrown companies there. And this positions us against the U.S. in those employment trends. We're just behind the U.S. in terms of overall life sciences employment gains since 2019. We're at about 12% as a state. The U.S. grew 14.5%. But even over that longer period where we've grown, the medical device segment has actually seen some job declines. So still a powerhouse, still highly specialized, but we're shedding jobs, and that's something we want to keep an eye on. In the interest of time, I'm just going to skip ahead. In terms of economic development and why we love this industry generates high-quality jobs, family-sustaining jobs. The average wage in the Utah life sciences sector is almost $93,000 per year, and that is a 38% premium over the total private sector. So this is an industry that is highly productive, and when you look at things like value added, our contribution to GDP, in an innovation-driven industry, this leads most that you could benchmark it against. So why do we care about this industry? From state targeting to economic development to the value proposition it brings. We also care because it creates really good jobs and a high economic impact. And then I'll just round it out. We do, in the Bio Report, look at the life sciences innovation ecosystem across academic research, NIH funding, and VC investments. Both academic R&D and NIH funding, at least through 2024, so 2025 is a different story. We're up 30% and outpaced the U.S. growth. We have an academic research complex just in the life sciences that is $554 million in annual R&D expenditures. So that is our University of Utah as a leader, but our other institutions in the state in terms of an annual expenditure, driving its own economic impact, but certainly driving innovation. $300 million in 2024 in NIH funding. And as we looked at venture capital investment, this is a place where Utah really stood out in our Bio Report that we released last year. But as we look at the last 2 years, venture capital and angel funding are down significantly. So we like to average these things. We know there's variability in VC funding. But as we look at the average from last year and through November of this year, we're down about 74% from the totals we were seeing in 2019 through 2021. So the U.S. is down as well, but here in Utah, you all may be feeling some of that pain on the investment front. So a lot of information. You all have been great. Happy to hang out and answer questions.
For you. I understand you have an infallible crystal ball. So looking into the future, a number of these indicators are starting to slow down. What are the drivers that you're looking towards that we should be aware of that can either tune it up or tune down the future?
Yeah, one of the exciting things in Utah, and I think, looking forward, is when we look at the state's R&D, commercial R&D in life sciences, it is outsized, meaning it has that high location quotient, and it's been growing considerably. So that's your future bench, if you will, of biopharmaceutical companies. It's also our established companies conducting R&D at sites in the state. So this is a state that's really driving innovation. And if those biotech companies can emerge, can have the right ecosystem, can have the right talent, can have the right capital investment, there's a lot of promise there. and I know you all have seen that over the years. But that's one area where we look at sort of those companies graduate from that pre-commercial work they're doing into being, viable commercial biopharma companies, et cetera. So that's one piece. Yeah.
Other questions from the audience? Ryan, we are so delighted that you would. Yes, yes, yes.
You had a slide up there about the STEM investment, and I wondered if in your interviews or in any of that you were hearing that they were hiring or building a division specific for education and for the dissemination of that information. I'd be kind of interested to know, is it just they're saying, hey, HR, as a side gig, we need you to add more internships or get more into schools? Does that make sense? Or are they actually saying, this is enough of a priority that we're going to hire an education person in STEM outreach? Do you have any sense of that?
Yeah, it's a good question. As we've done that work with pharma, in terms of the biopharmaceutical subsector, they do have a lot of dedicated folks we've seen. And though I should say a lot of those companies, the big multinationals, have foundations where they do a lot of that work. So there are dedicated folks in those foundations. Now, when it comes to more the post-secondary work and where we're hiring interns and that co-op emphasis that we've seen, that is very much happening at sites around the country, out of HR and hiring manager initiatives generally. Yep. Any other questions? Well, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Ryan, so much.